If you have that fear, that means you're gonna do it right, because that means you care, and,
Yes.
and that means you're gonna put things in place anytime it does happen, and those little things are gonna happen, and you are going to apologize to a client, and hopefully nothing major, but you'll get through it, but I think, if we didn't care that deeply, then it's not gonna last, and we see the ones that don't last because they don't care what their ICs or employees are doing, then it falls apart. If you care that much, that means that's your sign, right? Here's your sign
Yes.
type of deal.
Welcome to the Pet Business Hiring Podcast, where we talk about growing your pet care team. I'm your host, Doug the Dog Guy, and today I'm joined by my friend Shannon Hendon. Shannon is the owner and founder of Ocala Pet Sitting in Ocala, Florida. She has been in business for almost 20 years. So she's coming to us today with a lot of. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Doug. I always love seeing you, talking to you. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's always so fun to talk to you, Shannon. I would love you to start by telling us a little bit about your story. Now, you've been in business for almost 20 years. Take us back, to the beginning of your business and tell us how and why you wanted to become a pet sitter.
Oh my goodness. So I was actually going to get my bachelor's degree. I was going to be a veterinarian. That was like my thing. That's what I was doing no matter what. And I had four small children while I was doing this. And so super proud of getting my bachelor's while doing that. But my last year of college, I decided it wasn't the right fit for me and my family. My kids were now turning into some of them teenagers. So I was like, and I was really sad about losing that dream. And someone said to me, you can still work with dogs and animals. And I just was not in like that mindset. And they're like, well, I see these dog walkers and people out here. That's like a thing. And I was like, what? So I ran to the library. This was like MySpace kind of early internet time and got Patty Moran's book, Pet Sitting for Profit. I read it in one day. The next day, I started a one-page website and got my LLC and a .com, and I was in business. I guess when I decide something, I just kind of jump in, so really her book was the only research I did, and I have always loved being like professional about things and very thorough. So I started that way and I was solo and I found that I just loved it so much and it worked with my schedule with the kids, taking them to school and all that. And I had a lot of flexibility with the pet sitting. I didn't plan, I didn't have like this long-term plan. I'm going to even be in it like 5 years. I just was just like, we'll see what happens. Got my first few clients pretty quickly. I had the website didn't even get a lot of hits at first. It was a little newspaper ad that people used to do back in the day, pet sitter wanted type of thing for like $20. And I started getting calls and it's been a crazy ride since then, really. So yeah, that's how I started. And then it just evolved. And as Colin liked to say last time I spoke to him, I guess I have proven that I'm very good at adapting to when changes come to life. You know, and that's kind of, if I look back, that's my story because if you don't adapt to major life changes, then you just stay stuck. And so I'm still evolving to this day. Don't claim to know, half of everything, but I'm always trying and I'm always trying to learn more at all times. I call myself a lifelong learner and just reaching out. What can I gain from every person I meet? So that's how it's grown from there.
Yeah. Um, Something that I've always found so inspirational about your story is how committed you are to continually evolving yourself. I know through personal struggles with your health and then moving to cats only, and all of these other evolutions you've made through the last 20 years really shown me, and I know other people in the industry that have not been in business as long as you have, that anything is possible, but we have to be ready, willing, and able to evolve.
Yeah, I've had some pretty hard hits over time, and I am, to get serious deep here, often feel like I'm a failure in every way because, I fall into that trap a lot of us do of comparing myself to others. I am 50 now, let's say, and, I. I don't have the ability or everything, and I see all these new pet sitters. I'm like, wow, they are so far ahead of me. But, you really can't compare yourself. I do know that. And I feel like a lot of times maybe I got in my own way by making these changes, but that's really a lie. The truth is, something major was happening there in my life that I had to make the change. So, while it's held me back maybe somewhat financially or the size of my team, the hard work I put in and the longevity is still there, and the relationships with my clients and my community is very, very deep. And so I just remind myself that that's really what I'm doing it for. And that's what I'm proud of after all of these years. Honestly, I've discovered that helping my clients, helping people, not just the animals, is where I get my real joy from. And really thought for maybe 8 or 10 years that it was the animals. But no, it's really is about helping my clients when they're going through a tough time that I know I've been through. And I know when they say to me, "We could not have gone to my father's funeral, because I couldn't leave my animal." And like they really meant it. And, maybe their animal had special needs or whatever, and there was no way they were going to leave them in a boarding facility, and they had nobody, especially in the area I'm in with a lot of retirees that move here, and they don't have family and friends, here. I see that quite often. So that kind of started becoming a theme, and, it's driven me even more to provide like the best service for them. And, the crisis that I've had in my life, about 9 years ago, I had a major lung surgery. I almost died and came back from that. And I was out of the business for about a year while I was recovering and didn't know if I would come back. It was barely hanging on by, you know, a thread with my daughter kind of accommodating who she could, but I didn't have backup and I didn't have anybody. So that is what pushed me to think about hiring other than just working with my daughter. It forced me to these kind of life decisions, like how much do you really love it? How much are you passionate about it? Because I can't imagine going to work for a 9 to 5, as much as my finances sometimes tell me maybe you should do that. I would not be happy. I would be dead inside. I can't do it. I'd rather work 20 and, uh, have this thing that I love so much.
Absolutely. I can relate with so much of what you just said. I really thought that it was the animals bringing me the joy and the purpose, and they do, but I really thought that was my driving factor the first few years. And the longer that I've done this, I have really realized that it's making an impact on the families and helping the actual people. That's what really drives me more than anything. I've started to tell my team that we don't offer pet sitting and dog walking. We offer families opportunities. We offer them the opportunity to accept longer hours at work because they know we're going to be there to feed their dog dinner or walk them around the block, or we give them the opportunity to go to their grandpa's funeral or something like that because they know that we're there for them. I don't know, I really resonated with that
Mhm.
when you were saying that.
It's so true. And, speaking of the team, I have found it so impactful. to share that when a client, I just had one write me this morning, almost made me cry, um, to say how much peace of mind it's giving them when they're literally on the other side of the world. And when you share that with your team, you copy that little private chat and show them, I find that it really resonates with them, and then they get to experience it on the deeper level that we have, being in this for, usually longer than them. And, hey, that also helps with retention and they get a deeper, connection to the business itself. So
Yeah.
I've had lots of team members who comment on that, and I make it a point to always share those.
Yeah. Take me back, 20 years ago when you were starting your business. It sounds like you didn't have a plan of hiring and growing a team. When did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I had no plan. I had worked with family businesses. I was in TV productions and worked with my, family business, and I knew how to do payroll employees like on paper the old way. And I kind of hated it. Like that was not the job for me. Of course, now I'm doing it, but like that was not the job for me. And so I really did have a fear of having employees and dealing with taxes. Like that was my main fear. Government involvement? No. Like, what can I do to be solo and keep them away from me? But my first year in business, I remember my taxes were more than I made profit. And I was like, what the heck? That was like, what am I doing wrong here? And then over time, I kept it solo just because I was so busy with my kids. Like, honestly, Doug, it was like madness. But once my youngest was, in the later years of high school and graduating, and then that kind of coincided with my surgery and my need to hire, um, I started with ICs. And at the time, that was kind of the industry standard from what I could see. I started networking at the same time. I started researching and I found all the Facebook groups and was listening, or reading, listening to what everyone was doing. And my husband had been an IC for an alarm system company, well, many of them for over 30 years. And I saw how he worked as an IC and it was smooth. His pay was smooth. I have no idea what the higher ups were doing. It was large companies, but that was how it worked in their industry. So it was a natural fit for me to go that way,
How
and
long
so
had you been in business when you brought on your first contractor?
that was that would have been year maybe 14 or 13.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you were
Yeah.
solo for a long time.
Yeah, I really was. But those last couple of years that I was solo, I was having more instances where I was getting sick. It would kind of be like, you'd get a cold or something from someone, and then I would be sick for several months and mainly like coughing a lot and flu-like symptoms. But I could still pet sit. The animals didn't care if I had a cough or wasn't feeling well. But that kept happening like every 3 months for a couple of years until I had to have the surgery. So I kind of was just in my own head about dealing with my health and all these things. And I didn't really have the energy to even think about what can I do to help myself really. And if you would ask me one thing I would do, I know you will ask me, but like I do wish I had help sooner. Who knows what health issues I could have avoided or maybe better managed at the time. Not only that, but my life, I just didn't know. I wasn't connected online and to other people. I was in my own, just doing my own thing on my own road. And I do have some regrets about that. But, it is what it is. I've been on the fast track since then, I think. But yeah, it was a journey. But once I got that first contractor, I was like, okay, like it was like the light at the end of the tunnel. I can do this. Like, no matter if it works with her or not, like, I can do it. But I'll tell you, I was terrified. That is also why it took that many years. I was beyond, like, I was having physical, and I'm not like an anxiety attack person, but like even the thought. And I see people talking in the groups all the time about that fear, and it is real.
It is so real. It is so real. I know I've had to deal with a lot of that fear myself, and so many of us have to work through that fear. We're putting our reputation and our business's reputation in the hands of someone else, not to mention the actual pets' lives and the safety of the clients' homes. And, the list goes on. There's so much fear around all of that. Plus, like you mentioned earlier, we have the taxes and the legal requirements, and there's so many unknowns for a lot of us when we get into this and start hiring and growing our team. And I think a lot of us can also relate with what you said of wishing we had done it sooner. I wish I would have brought on help sooner. And it was the fear and the unknowns that slowed me down. So I really think we can all relate with you on that.
Yeah, and the self-doubt, like, who am I to think I can own a business? Or like, I didn't go to school for business. I wish I would have. That's another one. I'm in the school of life here though. But yeah, like what, I'm going to fail, all of it, all your past history, trauma, it all comes up when you're taking this kind of leap off a cliff. It feels like. But I just had this thought, Doug. That fear of like our reputation and, they're not going to do it right. They're going to lose a key. They're going to, mess up a client. The client's going to be mad at me. I just had this moment like, if you have that fear, that means you're going to do it right because that means you care. And,
Yes.
and that means you're going to put things in place anytime it does happen. And those little things are going to happen, and you are going to apologize to a client. And hopefully nothing major, but you'll get through it. But I think, if we didn't care that deeply, then it's not going to last. And we see the ones that don't last because they don't care what their ICs or employees are doing, then it falls apart. So, maybe that's a little bit of wisdom there. If you care that much, that means that's your sign, right? Here's your sign
Yes.
type of deal.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. We'll dig into this fear here a little bit in a minute. But first, I would love for you to tell me if you could go back to when you brought on that first contractor, what would you have done differently?
Well, she was first of all an experienced pet sitter. She had been a solo pet sitter in the 90s, she said. So like did everything paperwork and everything even before me. Which I later learned, that is, that could be a sign that maybe they wanna micromanage you and take over your business kind of, push. And I didn't have a lot of, like, knowledge how to deal with that. And, the customer like, not the customer, but, like, the relationship and the management stuff. Like, maybe I would have, had a coach then or read some books on, management styles or how to deal with, conflict resolution with, someone you're working with, things like that. I didn't have major things I have it did end in, big flames and fire. It did. But for 2.5 years, she was an amazing pet sitter. From the client side and the work she did, she was great. And that did keep me hanging on with her maybe longer than I would want to. And the things she said to me were very subtle. So I was like, why is that bothering me? Why is that now they say now like triggering me? Like it's not like overtly like rude or mean, but I was like, that I don't know if I would say that to someone who's quote unquote my boss. Like weird things and it slowly escalated from there to where I kind of avoided those conversations with her. So when I did finally have to be like, I'm done, she didn't handle it well. And I always stay professional, but I know I could have handled it better. and have since then. I definitely learned from it. I should learn to trust my instincts, which I know in every other part of my life, I have really good instincts. But I kept squashing them down with her because she was helping me. Her role was lifting so much from my life, and she was doing a great job with the animals. And I hear a lot of people say that, especially when they start, it happens. And she was an IC, so I had no control, of what she was doing. And, that also taught me like that was the first niggle a few years later when I had maybe 4 or 5 ICs, she was still there, and I was like because of some of the things she was doing, that did give me the first clues that, yeah, I need the control and I need the employee thing. There were other reasons, but, yeah, that was a big part of it.
I think the big takeaway here is A, to trust your instincts. That's something that I have really struggled with as I was building my own team because I was 19 when I brought on my first hire. I had never
Well,
managed anyone before. I had never hired anyone before. So even though I think I actually had pretty good instincts about what to do, I would always talk myself out of it by saying, "You're only 19. You don't know what you're doing." And so I think that's a good takeaway for everybody. Trust your gut, trust your instincts, and have those hard conversations sooner rather than later. That's something else that I'm a people pleaser. I think a lot of us care providers,
same.
we want everyone around us to be happy and just cannot be the case all of the time. And the longer we wait to have those harder conversations, the harder those conversations are going to be.
Yeah, it's so true. I still struggle with that in all areas of my life, I think. But I try to be conscious of it, and now I surround myself with colleagues and coaches who help. I can like deconstruct the conversation. This is what's happening, and kind of like support me. Like I know what the conversation should be, but like kind of give me that little support and nudge, because we are a lot of the times alone as the, head of the business. So it's nice to have, others to help you in those kinds of areas that you find that you struggle and you know better.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you started with contractors and then you eventually transitioned over to W-2 employees. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that desire to transition come about, and what was the transition like for you?
Yeah, so, about 3.5, 4 years ago, the major life change happened. My husband had a major health crisis and, is disabled. Thank goodness I had my, team at the time. I've had them in place and everything went better for me. I had the time to step away more and stuff. But also, I knew that I wanted to do more training. I like to teach people. I was mentoring other sitters and I just felt like I wanted to do more of that. I started already writing like a training course and stuff, but I couldn't teach it to my ICs, as much as I wanted to. I could kind of like let them be around me and maybe hopefully they would catch on like, "Oh yeah, she's washing the cat food cans. That's maybe I should do that." But I couldn't, say, "Here's a course I want you to do this." Oh, I s I was so terrified. I can't express how terrified I was, but also at the time I got like a government, a tax thing that was nothing to do with my business, but it kinda scared me, and they were wrong, and I had to fight them. It was awful at the same time as my husband's thing, but I just felt like I was hearing in the industry, that they're gonna be doing audits, and the fear of the audit having ICs was more overwhelming than the fear of actually doing it, and that pushed me again. I used that fear, that was my word that year. I was leaning into fear, and I was anything that I was afraid of that year, I told myself that's what I'm doing. And I found that taking action on that fear is really what helped me let go of it. Because when you're thinking about the small little actions you're doing, okay, I gotta send this form to the government to get this number and do this. Then I'm like in it and handling the day to day of making it happen instead of fearing it. And that really helped. Um, I had another coach at the time. And then, of course, I purchased your course, which was amazing. But I just kind of got every resource I could and just did it.
What does it take to scale your pet care business? My name's Michelle Klein. I'm the founder of Dog Co Launch, where pet care companies come to grow and scale. And I want to send you a case study of how one of my clients took his monthly revenue in just 1 year from $17,000 to over $73,000. And yes, that is monthly revenue, not annual. To get this case study and to learn more about Dogco and what we do and how we help companies, go to dogcolaunch.com/case study.
Talk to my accountant, through the process. And I ran a bunch of numbers before, making it happen. And my numbers were showing me I was way overpaying the ICs, especially that first one. I was making like no profit off of her at all.
We all
And
start there.
so I've heard that story from a lot of people too. I was paying them a percentage. So I did big price increases for my clients and stuff because I hadn't raised prices in 15 years. That's a whole nother topic.
Wow.
I kind of forgot, I was just in my zone. But then I raised prices, but then they had a percent and their pay raised even more. Uh, I just was doing kind of a lot of things that weren't helping me. And I was working so hard. And while they were relieving stress and giving me back some of my time, financially it wasn't working. So when I ran the numbers to switch to employees, I actually made more money and compensated them fairly and able to provide more for them, and I have no regrets. I have 0 regrets making that switch.
Yeah. Well, I really want to dig into how you've overcome all of this fear. You had this fear of going from solo to bringing on your first contractor, and then there was fear around transitioning your contractors to full employee status. This is something that we can all relate with. Tell me, how did you work through all of it?
I had a coach at the time. She's no longer in the business, but I honestly wrote like one of those pour your heart out, almost sobbing messages in a Facebook group. Like, my world is ending. I might have to get a 9 to 5. My husband's had this crisis, disabled. I'm at my wit's end. I'm the only one holding my family up, my life up. And she reached out to me and very kindly we, became very close because of it. And she helped me get, some clarity. She more was like a counselor for me. And then she had, she always had employees, so she had a process to help me through it. So she kind of held my hand through the process when, I met with her on a weekly basis. And I also got your course and, was in your group and stuff. But I would reach out to like you and others like who are already doing it and say, how did you get through this process? And, I'm thankful for the other pet sitters that I reached out to that, gave me a little bit of their time here and there to answer those questions, whether it's a quick text or a quick phone call. I felt like, I do that for others who are new in the business, partly because, that's the type of person I want to be, and that's the type of people I have found I surround myself in this business. And, we can't do it alone. And especially when you're making a big jump like that, it's totally doable. But to have somebody, find a mentor or, several that you can talk to that are willing to help you. I'm helping 2 people right now go through the process. So, they're out there, and I really think that's what's gonna help you get out of your mind about it when you're freaking out. Like, because you will freak out constantly through the process. It's not like, oh, I started it. It's going to be great now because I got over that first fear. No, they're going to keep rolling as you go. It's kind of like that buyer's remorse. Like,
So true.
should I keep doing this? Oh, no, maybe, because it takes a little time to do that transition. And I will tell you one thing. I was also terrified because everyone said, you have to have it ready on January 1st because, the IRS and this and that. And I really tried, but deadlines of me are hard to make happen. And so I didn't. And I think I had it ready maybe end of February when I ran my first employee payroll, which was the most exciting day ever. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. If they say I owe more money or something penalty, I'll deal with it. At least I made the process happen because that was hard enough without adding that extra pressure on myself. Like, obviously, I'm not like any kind of CPA or anything, so I don't have, I'm not telling anybody what to do on that. But I wish I would have had it done, ready to go January 1st. But it didn't stop me. I didn't say, well, now I gotta wait another year. I wanted it, like, over with, so I'm just doing it.
Yeah. And you trusted yourself to know that you could deal with the repercussions. If there were going to be any, you could deal with them as they come up. Having that belief in yourself and knowing that you can handle what's thrown at you, I think you can't put a value on that. And that's hard to come by.
Mm.
But how did you build that confidence in yourself to know that you could handle the repercussions?
Well, lots of trauma, I think. I keep always thinking of this saying, like, I've made it through 100% of the, things I've lived through in life so far. So, what is that quote? I love it. Every time I see that quote, I just laugh and like, no, it's true. If you've been through a lot of things, like, like, I'm just gonna figure it out. Like my good friend Grace always likes to say, thing is figure outable. And I'm
Yes.
like, it's really true. See, you can look at anybody in crisis, around the world, and there's awful things happening. And, but the human spirit, we will figure it out. And, there might be some bumps and it's not great, but you'll figure it out. And, when it comes to, switching to employees or, making that jump from solo to employees, it's the reward for that is going to be so huge for your life and your future and your business that you're going to be so proud of yourself, and it's so worth it. Don't waste any more time living in the fear of it because you're going to regret that time. Just jump in and do it.
Yes. I'm feeling inspired just listening to you. This is amazing. Um, One thing that really stood out to me from what you were saying is just the power of having someone to talk to, having that community around you to support you and getting into the Facebook groups and having a mentor and just someone to bounce ideas off of. And like you said, this coach was almost more of a counselor for you. And the value of that just cannot be understated. Um, that's it's been amazing for me. I really felt alone the first couple of years of my business. I didn't know about Pet Sitters International, and the Florida Pet Services Association didn't exist yet. And I didn't know about pet sitter Facebook groups. There's lots of great Facebook groups. So I really felt totally alone. And then as soon as I got introduced to PSI and NAPS and started getting into some of the Facebook groups and got my first business coach, it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my business just to know that I wasn't alone.
It's so true. And I've continued to find those people in my life. And I'll also say, it doesn't have to be necessarily someone in the pet industry, although that's amazing. You can also, join networks of small business owners in your community. I know they're meeting out here for coffee every Tuesday and every Thursday evening. And other small business owners, that have gone through the same thing of employees. It's very similar for almost any small business. So you can find others like that in your community. And also, what I like to tell people is there are a lot of coaches and mentors and people to network with, and you're not going to jive with all of them, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean anything different on either side, but it is important to find somebody that you really relate to. I like to say, almost like that friendship level where, like you and I, Doug, if we meet for coffee and we can have a great chat about, how's your life going and everything, and also the animals. But, you kind of want that with a coach, or a mentor and, or other people you're networking with when it comes to something like this. So you can be, vulnerable and share, the struggle with them because that's the part you really want to get to. You know, you want to feel heard and like they can relate. And that's really going to have a huge impact, like you said, on your entire life, really.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you mentioned that you're not going to jive with everyone, and that is okay. That doesn't mean anything bad on them or on you. It's just everybody has different personalities, and it is so important to have someone in your corner, whether it's a business coach or a friend or whoever it may be, just someone that you can be vulnerable with. I think that is so important.
Yeah, I find that I meet other solo pet sitters that have given up, or they'll say, "I tried and, they didn't show up, or they didn't, they were rude, or they don't, have the same standard of care as I have." And like, yeah, there's going to be some of that when you meet people, it's kind of the same, as life. Like every single person in the world is not your friend, you know, and that's okay. So it's the same when you're meeting people, colleagues in business and stuff. And everyone does have, something of value to offer and teach us, but it's also important to kind of find your tribe. A lot of us say that. Find your tribe and find a few people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Speaking of finding your tribe, I think it was one of the first times we met, probably the first time we met. What stood out to me, well, there was many things that stood out to me, but one of the things that was really inspiring though is your networking group that you built there in Ocala. I mean, you have such an incredible, just fun group of ladies there that like I mean, just tell me, we're going a little bit off topic here, but tell me a little bit about how you've built this networking group in your area and the impact that's made.
Yes. I like to surround my people with, that have a great sense of humor and like to laugh, I need that in my life. I don't know about you, but like, and, life is so hard otherwise. And I was just watching your interview with Dom saying, like, it can be fun. This business
Yeah.
kid, you got to find those areas of fun. And I feel like networking is one of the ways that it should be fun. Of course, there's like mentoring and educational opportunities, but you can have fun while you're doing it, like we do at FPSA with our small groups of people, and people are laughing and having a great time during presentations even. So, I was going through that time with my husband, and honestly, like a lot of my best friends don't live in my town anymore. And I was really like, I love them to pieces, but, they don't understand the pet industry. We all know how that is. And I was in a loose network that had kind of come together, but there was some bad apples in there. And, it just wasn't like I wasn't able to be myself there. I was on guard a lot. So I reached out directly to three of the ladies and said, "Hey, you guys want to meet for lunch or what have you?" And we did that. And am a I'm a good judge of character. Like my best friends have all become best friends. So it's kind of a I find it someone told me it's kind of a superpower I have, that I just know when people are gonna click and connect and have that sense of humor, and I've kind of gathered them up here in town. Like, if you don't think we're funny, then maybe, like, we're not trying to exclude anyone, but, like, we think we're funny. We're having a good time, like, be light and have fun while we learn from each other. So, I just was blessed to meet a few, and it's grown from there and changed as, some have gone out of business and changed in the direction of their business. And so I'm always looking for more people to network with that kind of get it or get me, maybe. But I really selfishly just wanted to meet them for like some time away from the seriousness and the hard things that were happening in my life. And the funny thing is I initially kind of sold them on, like, we're going to do a co-work. We're going to have like an hour. Everyone bring your laptops. We're gonna like, you're gonna help me and I'm gonna help you like get some business done. And that went so out the window. It's not even funny. By the second time we were having margaritas and tacos. And my friend Dee Dee, who is like the mom of the group, was I love her to death, and she laughs along with us. Like the third time, she was like, "Wait a minute, are we ever gonna do any of like this working that you talked about?" I was like, "Oh yeah, maybe we should." So, but we never did. But I'm implementing that again this year for new sitters and stuff. But so I've kind of had to like separate it because we've gone kayaking and we've done like fun things together. But because we're all in the business industry, business stuff does always comes up, but we have fun too. So I'm like, now I'm planning our yearly holiday party and we do like a white elephant thing and it gets pretty raunchy and funny. The gifts kind of get out there. And I'm like, we need to find an outdoor like restaurant or we're going to get kicked out. It's kind of like, so I'm researching locations now because I'm like, we can't do that again. But it's fun. Like, people see us together and we all have our like, pet logo shirts on. They're like, what is happening here? Are you guys having a convention or like, you guys are having a lot of fun, and a lot of people will come up to us and ask us what we're doing, what's happening. They want to be a part of it. And I love that. And I've even said like a few times we've met a few pet sitters in the wild, I like to call it. Like they're just over there having lunch, and they're like, "I heard you guys talking about animals, so I had to come over. I used to be, or I'm a pet sitter here," and they just happen to be around us, so that's always fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think this really just goes to show the power of community and having your tribe around you, not just to like help you through the fears around growing your business and hiring and all of that side of things, but just to help you live a more balanced and healthy, happy life at the end of the day. And I think that's something that a lot of us business owners overlook. We get so bogged down in the day to day that we sometimes forget to go have margaritas and tacos with our friends and share a laugh. And it's those moments that fix everything.
It really does. Like I will tear up thinking about it because they really saved me. There was 6 months there where there was no therapist or pill that was going to help me get through that. And they did. And they didn't even know they were doing it. But that amount of laughter got me through really the hardest time of my life. And I'm forever grateful to them. And I feel like I owe them so much. And one of them now is switching to employees. I think she bought your course here
Nice.
last night or the yesterday. And I'm like, I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. I'm going to, I will help you, you know, do this, and she's been watching me do it and kind of, you could see that person in front of you doing like a little guinea pig, like, okay, if she survived it, maybe I can, but yeah, this business can be hard and nobody understands it like other, business owners. And so I just always am encouraging people like, keep trying to meet people. Just reach out. Let's have coffee. Let's grab a late lunch. 2 o'clock works great for a lot of us. So, and when we do that, it's it feels it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm meeting a friend, and we need that in our life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been so inspiring for me, so I know it's gonna be inspiring for everyone else to listen to. As we wrap up here, do you have any other last pieces of advice, any other tips or tricks for everyone listening at home, especially around hiring and growing their team?
I would say, yeah, do the work to, put some systems in place, put some basic training in place, some do your research, do Doug's course and talk to others. And a big piece of advice I would give is to trust your instincts. That is a huge one. If something feels off with someone you're interviewing, trust that. Don't skip over it or push it down. Don't feel like you're being judgmental or I'm just thinking of all the things I felt when I've done it. I just had 3 applicants that I had going through onboarding and did a little training, and one of them just kept there was like it wasn't anything definite, but I just kept feeling like this isn't right. And the other candidate was like, everything felt right. And it is like, for me, it's a feeling. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because my feelings have shown me that I'm always right. And so I did let her go early in the process and save my money, putting her through more training. So trust that. And you can also trust that there's going to be someone that's right for you that's going to come. And, as soon as you know that something's wrong with them, like have it in plan to continue to hire and get another one. Don't get so stuck on, I hired this person and they just have to stay because I put all this time into them. Or I went through all that interviewing and I did all these ads and I've put all this stuff in my mind. Get rid of them faster, hire fast, let them go fast if you have to, but always trust your instinct on them. 'Cause it's always right, and it doesn't mean they're a bad person like we said. It means they're not the right fit for your company and your culture. My company culture is, a part of me, I feel like, because 'cause I'm still very much in my business, and if they don't jive with that, like I like to say, like, they could do a lot of things right on paper, but it's not right, then they've gotta go, and
I
that can be
love that
hard,
advice.
but you've
I think
gotta yeah.
I think that's great advice. I've been hiring for my own business the last few weeks, and a couple weeks ago, we had an applicant come in that they were perfect on paper. Their application, all of their answers were exactly what we want. But then we went to interview them, and the vibes were just off. I could not put my finger on it, but something just wasn't right. It wasn't clicking. It wasn't clicking.
Yeah.
And so I ended up hiring someone else that their answers on their application were not as good as the other person, but we instantly clicked in the interview. And I'm just so glad that I made that decision because they're working out fabulously now. And that other applicant was able to land a job that was a better fit for him. So it's like you said, it doesn't mean that they are a bad person. It doesn't mean that they are wrong. It just means that this isn't the right position for them right now. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, and, that's exactly what happened with these 2, and I really wanted to hire 2, I need the help. But the same exact thing happened, and I actually recommended her to other pet businesses in town that I felt she would be a better fit for, and that's okay, and I told those business owners that I know personally, like, "She's amazing, it's just not a we just didn't click, and I'm cats only, so that's a different thing, and she had more dog experience." There was things, you know, and it's worked out well. It was hard to say because she asked, like, "What did I do or could have done better?" Because she was partway through the training already, and I really didn't even have a great answer for that, so, it was hard for me, but I don't regret it. Trust your instinct, people, just trust it.
Yes. Incredible advice, Shannon. It was so amazing to talk to you today. Thank you so much for making time to sit down with me and record this podcast episode. As we wrap up, tell everybody where they can learn more about you and get in contact with you.
Sure, you can find me most of the time on Facebook. Ocala Pet Sitting is my business name, and my name's Shannon Hendon. And I have a profile there. I would love anyone to become my friend.
Yay. All right. I'll put all of your links down in the podcast notes below so people can click through and get to know more about you. Again, thank you so much, Shannon. This was amazing. With that, my name's Doug the Dog Guy. That's Shannon Hendon, and we are reminding you to stay
Stay
positive.
positive.